Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm excited to introduce our topic, Agnation in Islamic law. On this first slide, we see that agnation is called letter 1E63ABH in Arabic. We'll explore who the agnate relatives are, specifically those from the paternal side, like the father, the son, full or paternal half-brothers, and the father's brothers. We'll also discuss how, in inheritance law, these agnate relatives are often the ones who receive an undefined share of the estate. If they are the only claimants, they inherit everything, but if there are others, they get what remains after the prescribed shares are distributed. So today, we'll get a clear understanding of how agnation influences inheritance in Islamic law. Let's take a closer look at the concept of agnation, which is divided into three main categories. The first category is agnation by oneself, known in Arabic as letter 1E63ABH by an-nafs. This includes all males who are considered entitled to inheritance through a consensus, with the exception of the husband and the maternal half-brother. In simple terms, these are the male relatives who have a direct or close paternal connection and are recognized as heirs, unless they fall into the specific exceptions I just mentioned. It's also important to note that different schools of thought, like the Malik and Shafi schools, have added a sixth category called Bait al-Mal al-Muslimin, which refers to the Muslims of trust funds. Understanding these distinctions is crucial because they help us determine inheritance rights accurately within Islamic law, connecting directly to our overall theme of social justice and family rights in Islam. Let's take a closer look at the concept of agnation by other relative, or letter 1E63ABH by al-Ghair. This category is quite important in understanding inheritance rules. It includes four main groups of relatives. First, we have the daughters of the deceased along with his sons. This grouping considers situations where both daughters and sons are involved in the inheritance process. Next, we have the female descendants of the deceased's male descendants, combined with his male descendants themselves. This helps us see how inheritance is shared among different branches of the family. Third, there's the full sister of the deceased along with his full brother. This shows the relationship between siblings who share both parents. Lastly, we have paternal half-siblings, half-sisters and half-brothers, who share the same father but not the mother. Recognizing these groups helps us understand how inheritance is distributed among relatives connected through different types of kinship. All these categories highlight the importance of kinship and family ties in the rules of inheritance, which are key themes in our overall discussion. Let's take a closer look at the concept of agnation with other relatives, or letter 1E63ABH ma al-Ghair. This refers to situations where the deceased has certain relatives that influence inheritance, specifically full sisters and their daughters, or paternal half-sisters and their daughters. So, imagine one or more full sisters of the deceased, combined with one or more daughters of the deceased, or perhaps the deceased's granddaughters. These are key relations in this context. The important point here is that these relationships can affect how the inheritance is distributed, especially when other heirs are not present or are excluded. Similarly, the concept extends to one or more paternal half-sisters, meaning sisters who share only the father, and their daughters. These relations are considered letter 1E63ABH ma al-Ghair because they influence the inheritance alongside other relatives, but they are distinguished by their specific kinship ties. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these family relationships helps us determine the rightful heirs and the distribution of the estate accurately. Recognizing who qualifies as a letter 1E63, a B, a H in these cases, is crucial for ensuring justice and adherence to Islamic inheritance laws. All right, let's talk about how inheritance works when two or more agnate relatives are involved. There are four key cases to keep in mind. The first case is when these relatives share the same agnation side, the same level of kinship, and the same degree of kinship. In this situation, they share the inheritance equally, like sons inheriting together from their father. The second case is when they differ in their agnation side. Here, the relative who is closest in kinship takes priority. For example, a son versus a father. Since the son is on the same side and closer in kinship, he has priority in inheritance over the father. Understanding these distinctions is crucial because they determine how inheritance is distributed among relatives. It ties back to our overall theme of how family relationships influence inheritance rights, emphasizing clarity in legal and traditional inheritance rules. Now, moving on to the third case, where individuals share the same Agnation side but differ in their level of kinship. For example, consider a son and his male child. In such situations, the son generally takes precedence over the grandson. This highlights how the level of kinship influences priority, even when they share the same Agnation side. Next, we have the fourth case, which involves sharing the same Agnation side and level of kinship, but differing in the degree of kinship. Here, the strength or closeness of the relationship matters. For example, a full brother versus a paternal half-brother. Since the full brother has a stronger degree of kinship, he is given priority over the half-brother. These distinctions are crucial because they help us understand how kinship ties influence inheritance and social roles. They connect directly to our overall theme of kinship and social organization, emphasizing that both the side of kinship and the degree of closeness play vital roles in determining priority.